Okay. Okay. Um, so, hi everyone. I'm Caterina Reed, and thank you for joining this session on ethical co-working and kindness in academic libraries. Just as a reminder, please keep your audio and video turned off. And if you feel comfortable, feel free to introduce yourself and enter any questions into the chat. And I'll get to those at the end of the presentation. Thank you. Okay, the session is being recorded. And I would also like to thank our founding conference sponsor, the School of Information at San Jose State University, for giving us the opportunity to all, talk today. Okay, so again, hello. Thank you for joining my presentation on ethical co-working and kindness in academic libraries. I've presented on this topic in the past, but it was more geared towards technical services work. So if you're a technical services person, I am too. So thanks for coming. But this presentation is for all academic library workers, and technically it's for everybody. But I wanted to specifically address academic library workers in this presentation. Okay, so before we get started, let's just take a minute or so to do a mindfulness check-in. So first, we'll start with setting down any devices that you might be holding, or maybe any distractions that are around you. I want you to close your eyes, and if you can, place your feet firmly on the ground. Now, I want us to take in a collective breath in through the nose for 5 seconds. So if you want to breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you're going to hold the breath and breathe out through your mouth for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if it feels good for you, maybe try that again. And you can open your eyes, you can stretch, shake your arms, legs, fingers, toes, any body part. And I hope that throughout this presentation, if you feel the need to pause or take a break, feel free to do so. If you need to leave early, feel free to do so. I won't take offense. And you have to, I want you to recognize what your body needs. After all, this presentation is about kindness. So let's not forget about ourselves in that. So again, my name is Caterina Reed. I use she, her pronouns, and I work in the acquisitions department at Stony Brook University Libraries, located in New York. Before we start with the formal presentation, I'd like to share my identities with you all so you understand my positionality in this work. I'm a multiracial, white presenting, and neurodivergent cisgender woman. And I'm self-aware of the privileged identities that I have, and it really informs how I approach my work and what I research. Okay. So let's get started. I want to go over a few definitions. I was an English major, so I have a lot of definitions in this presentation. And so the title of this presentation is Ethical Co-working. And I think it's important to understand where the words ethics and ethical come from. So ethics, according to Merriam-Webster, is a set of moral principles, and it's a set of moral principles. And ethical means to conform to those accepted standards of conduct. And so basically what that means is just rules and guidelines that are associated with our values. Now, this is important because ALA has a code of ethics, and I think it's very important that we refer back to this whenever we can, because as the profession, we should be upholding our code of ethics, right? Just like doctors and lawyers have their own code of ethics, and social workers and so on. So in statement number 5, which is not on the slide, unfortunately, it would be too much text. Statement number 5 of the ALA Code of Ethics states that we should treat coworkers and other colleagues with respect, fairness, and good faith, and advocate conditions of employment that safeguard the rights and welfare of all employees of our institutions. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And then statement number 8 states that we should strive for excellence in the profession by maintaining and enhancing our own knowledge and skills, by encouraging the professional development of coworkers, and by fostering the aspirations of potential members of the profession. So I really see statements 5 and 8 vital to how to treat others in the workplace. And now the statement number 9, which is listed here, is the most recent addition to the Code of Ethics, and really important for us to remember. And that's, we affirm the inherent dignity and rights of every person. We work to recognize and dismantle systemic and individual biases, to confront inequity and oppression, to enhance diversity and inclusion, and to advance racial and social justice in our libraries, communities, profession, and association through awareness, advocacy, education, collaboration, services, and allocation of resources and spaces. So I said a mouthful, and I think it's important that we consider these words, that they're just not words, that these are not just statements, but actions that we should all be striving for every day when we're at work. You know, are we treating others with respect? Are we safeguarding the rights and welfare of all? And are we confronting inequity and oppression in our workplaces? So it's something that we all have to think about. And I really, whenever I approach work, and it doesn't matter if it's a meeting or a project, I try to think of these words and try to live by them, because, um, we've gone through so much. And if you were here before the recording started, we were talking about COVID. We've gone through so much just in the past few years, and especially folks with marginalized identities. I think it's just important that there's been so much research out there about low morale, about toxic workplaces, and I think each of us need to do what we can to uphold our code of ethics and really try to make the workplace a better one for everybody. So co-working is also in the title of the presentation. And I just wanted to point out the difference between co-working with the dash and co-working without it. So co-working without the dash is, according to AP Style Book, is really like, think about like WeWork. So workers are sharing the same space, but they're not necessarily working together. And then co-working with the dash is individuals who work for the same organization. And so these are our co-workers or colleagues. So now that we understand ethical co-working, which if we put the two words together, which is acceptable set of rules or standards that individuals working in the same organization abide by, let's take a look at kindness. And so I don't want us to mistake kindness for niceness. And there's research out there about the mm, the negative impacts of being nice. So I think we should remember that kindness is not about being nice. So kindness, I think, is kind of the opposite of or antidote to perfection. I'm a recovering perfectionist, and I think it's important to allow others and yourself to have space and time to reflect and even make mistakes. And I think being unkind is very easy to do. And so being kind means being intentional about taking care of yourself, about what you do, about what you say. It's about being generous and compassionate. And I think if we look at the differences between nice and kind, nice is really just about being pleasant, which really doesn't mean anything. Um, like you might not want to say something or do something because you're afraid of like how it might look. Whereas sometimes when you're kind, you have to do things or say things that might be difficult. Um, so now we have kindness. Um, so moving on, I think to practice ethical co-working and kindness, I think there are just some very basic things that we can all do. And it has been said in research that, kindness is free. And I've read posts on social media lately that just says that's just not true. And yes, so kindness is technically, you don't have to buy something in order to be kind, right? But we do have to have the willingness to be vulnerable and to share our authentic selves to be kind. And that can have an emotional cost, right? So I think there are some very basic things that you can do, like greeting people in the morning, acknowledging, special days like someone's birthday or an achievement. And I have these examples on this slide. And my colleagues and I pretty much do everything on this list. And it's just like really awesome to come to work and know that there are folks who are kind to you and will remember your birthday or acknowledge the work that you did on a project. And it really makes a difference. And I think doing acts of kindness for others sometimes can be a lot, especially if you're going through something. And so, especially again, if you have multiple marginalized identities and you're combating acts of like racism, sexism, ableism, it can be a lot to ask that person to also extend themselves for others. And so that's why I think self-kindness is important. I'm going to mention that in a later slide. So just hold that thought about self-kindness. But I don't think kindness is something that we should think of as extraneous or just unnecessary because there's been research. So the Born This Way Foundation has a study and they released some data that people of color and LGBTQ youth are less likely to experience kindness in the workplace. And that's just really sad. Like a lot of the things that I listed on this slide don't really take a lot, like um, for example, like sometimes I'll see a professional development opportunity on a listserv, and I know it's like really in line with someone I know, their trajectory. I might share that with them, like, hey, I thought of you, something like that. And kindness is not really, um, you're not trying to get anything out of it. Like you're not trying to do a favor for somebody. It's really about just you thought of them and you're just extending a hand, right? You're not really looking to get anything out of it, like getting rewarded or an award for, trying to do as many things for others as possible. I think it's really about being authentic and just trying to make the workplace a better space. So moving on, I think the most helpful tips that I can share about being kind is really about being authentic and vulnerable. And this is something that I've worked on for the past decade working is just um, sometimes you have to be willing to expose parts of yourself, like, like I shared with you my positionality. Like if you asked me 10 years ago, I probably would have not have shared those many details about myself. Um, but that's all about trust, right? If I'm asking you to trust me, I also have to trust you with my information, right? So I have to be willing to um, be vulnerable. I have to admit that I can make mistakes. I can be fallible. I have to hold myself accountable. Um, and we also have to be willing to listen non-judgmentally and practice self-care and self-kindness. And I think I actually need to do more of that. So this presentation serves as a reminder to myself too, to engage more in acts of self-kindness, right? So are you setting boundaries for yourself? Are you protecting your time and energy? So that you have the ability to help others the next day, right? So, um, sometimes there's that boundary of like, okay, like, am I people pleasing or am I being kind, right? Because if you're overextending yourself, then you're not really being kind to yourself either. So you have to keep those two um, buckets in mind, right? Yourself and others. Um, and so another point that I'd like to just share with everyone is consider like if you're going through something, like really consult with your employee assistance program or your ombuds office. Um, just on a personal note, like I've used the ombuds office, and even if it's just for an advice, like, okay, well, I've had this conversation with this person, and I'm really not sure how to approach, like, I know I shouldn't do this, but how do I move forward? And they can be a really good sounding board, and they're a confidential resource. Um, and also consider seeking connections and resources outside of the library and the institution. And that can be a lot, especially if you're thinking of resources like talk therapy and things like that. If you don't have insurance or you have insurance that won't cover it, that's, some a barrier, right, to getting support. But consider like looking for these resources, and EAP or ombuds might have some free or other resources that you might be able to take advantage of that maybe you didn't know about before. Because I think we really need to take care of ourselves in order to take care of others, right? So this presentation has been a brief discussion on ethical co-working and kindness. There's so much more that I could talk about. I could go on for hours, but we only have 20 minutes. But I'd just like to give a shout out to Helen Rimmer, who teaches courses on kindness and well-being. And I'm currently enrolled in her course. I'm just about to finish it. And I've learned so much. I've always thought that kindness is important, but I never realized how much research is out there that um, illustrates how being kind can significantly affect our well-being and our performance at work. So I received her permission to share her information with you, and please feel free to visit her website, www.thekindbraveleader.co.uk, and learn more about her work. She told me that she has another class, not necessarily geared towards libraries, but about kindness at work, that will be launching in a couple of months. So if you're interested, just look out for it. And, you know, she is a teacher on kindness, and she's very kind. And she provides very detailed feedback on assignments. So if you're looking for that, I suggest you sign up for her course. And so just one more thing before I conclude. I think we should be kind regardless. Like that's just something that's really important to me. But I think for those of you who are interested in the benefits of kindness, especially managers, you know, um, keep in mind that kindness at work decreases employee stress levels and increases productivity. Managers who take the time and energy to be kind will have more committed employees who will in turn provide better services for patrons. So um, if you are a role model for kindness, others may want to also um, take advantage of you being that kind person and also want to be kind themselves. And if not, at least you are that person, right? I think again, it's a lot to ask. Like I went through all of these examples of like simple things that you can do at work, but there's so much more. And I hope that we can have a conversation afterwards about some things. Maybe you have suggestions. Maybe you are an expert on kindness. um, so before I conclude, I just wanted to end with this poem. And I think, we can't stop all the harm being done within and outside of libraries, but I think, it is under our control about how we choose to treat someone else. So I'd like us to all treat others with kindness and choose empathy. And I want our actions to contribute to psychological safety rather than putting up barriers or perpetuating harms to others, right? So I think it's just one step to make our work environments a little bit better. And so before we go to questions, I just want to share these words from Maya Angelou's poem, Continue, which she wrote for Oprah. Quote, "My wish for you is that you continue to be who and how you are, to astonish a mean world with your acts of kindness. Continue to allow humor to lighten the burden of your tender heart." So with that, I would like to thank you all for joining, and I look forward to your questions. And if there is something sensitive or you don't feel like sharing in the Q&A because this is being recorded, feel free to contact me at my email, caterina.reed@stonybrook.edu. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
So we do have a question that came in, and I'll read it out. Let's see. It says, I appreciate using the ALA code. I'm a current member, but in my institution, tenured librarians have said they're not bound to it because the institution doesn't pay for your professional association membership. Could you share your thoughts of this unspoken reality that folks with 20 to 30 years of experience can be above any change? Thank you.
Wow, that is really unfortunate. And I think that's even more important. Why kindness is important, because if kindness was driving you, you wouldn't say something like that to someone else. Um, but I think even if it's not, even if the institution is not paying for ALA, right? Like, I don't think my institution doesn't pay. Um, I should know this because I work in acquisitions. We handle all the invoices. But the code of ethics is a professional code, right? Like, it's not just I'm a member of ALA, so only members of ALA should be upholding this code. I'm a librarian, so I should uphold this code, right? And I'm sorry you're going through that. And I think that sometimes if the code is not enough, which it should be, um, that's why there should also be institutional policies, right? So there are institutional policies and library policies at each institution, right? Um, and there should be a statement somewhere about whatever the behavior that is problematic, right? Like if there's a bullying policy or something like that. So it's a very complicated thing, I think, because each institution is different. And I'm not an expert, right? And I'm honored that you would ask me this question. Um, so I don't really have a good answer for you, but I think that, again, if you have an ombuds office or an EAP office and ask them about their policies and codes of the institution, something that you can reference, because if someone is continuing to have problematic behavior and it's not being addressed and they're refusing to address it because they think, oh, the code doesn't apply to me, um, there has to be some mechanism for that to be addressed. I'm just going to keep ranting, so I will stop with that. But um, thank you for asking me that question. I really don't have a good answer for you. I'm sorry.
Next question is, has your kindness ever been perceived as weakness at work? And if so, have you done anything to counter that?
Oh, that is a good question. Um, oh, and this is being recorded. Um, I think so. I mean, mm, when I was very early in my career, I didn't start out in libraries. But I think when I was very early in my career, um, like for me, kindness is justice for me. Like I can't I couldn't bring myself to treat someone else unkindly. Um, and I think um that yes, I do think that I've been perceived as weak because of it. But again, like I said, kindness is not about treating someone nice or letting someone just, bulldoze you, right? Metaphorically. Um, it's also knowing when to speak out about something. And that's something I've really been working on, and trying to do more of these things like presenting and stuff like that. Because if you haven't been able to tell, I'm very introverted and I'm very shy. So speaking out about something is very hard for me to do. Um, but I think it is important. And things I've done to counter it. Mm, let's see. We only have a couple minutes left. I'm sorry, I'm taking a while. Um, well, one thing, I don't know if this is really directly answering your question, is I've done a tremendous amount of leadership and DEI workshops. Like I've probably done hundreds of hours of training of just like watching a webinar or going to a conference session or just doing things and listening to other folks in this space. And every time I go to something, I learn something new. And that humbles me. And I think humility and kindness go hand in hand sometimes. And I've gone to so many workshops on providing feedback and kindness. And I think sometimes being kind is giving clear feedback, like and saying no. And I'm working on that too. So I'm a work in progress. So I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but thank you for asking that question.
That we have, and this is our last one. Employees with marginalized identities may have been told overtly or otherwise that they or their experience are not welcome. How can we encourage whole persons showing up while realizing it's been made impossible for some?
Ooh, that is a wonderful question. I want to answer that while protecting other people's privacy. Um, I think mm, I don't think we should expect folks who have um, experienced like really traumatic, like have had traumatic experiences at work to be the first ones to do all the work, right? And so when I was new at my job, I kind of tried to get a sense of what had been going on and how everyone has been experiencing things, especially during COVID, right? And um, I've built relationships with people who have marginalized identities. And people with marginalized identities who have had traumatic experiences are more willing to share with you or to share themselves if you are the one who does it first, right? And so that's why, like I said before, um, greeting someone hello, it really makes a difference. You don't know how many times I pass by people and someone doesn't greet them hello in the morning. It's so sad. I even greet the folks who are the custodial staff. It's like it really doesn't take much to say hello to someone and greet them and tell them to have a great day. Um, and when people sense that you're doing it out of the kindness of your heart and not just doing it because just for the sake of doing it, people are more willing to open up. And I know that's not really a clear answer, but I hope that that's a little bit helpful. If you are the person who has the marginalized identity, it can be really hard to trust someone, especially if someone has broken your trust in the past. Um, but that's why I think, solidarity is important, like going to spaces where you feel safe. Um, and that's why, like me and my colleagues, my department, like we just, it's someone's birthday, we get them a card, or we first ask if we want to celebrate, if they want to celebrate. We get them, a card and maybe bring some cookies or a tiny little cake and we celebrate. And have those kind of actions have built morale and trust. And it takes years. It's not something that you just can do overnight. So I don't know if I've answered everybody's questions well, but feel free to contact me and yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for attending. We're now at 1:30 if you're ready to go to your next session.
All right, thank you all. Thank you for your comments and for taking the time to ask questions.
There was someone else who put, it wasn't a question, but they said, thank you so much. I really needed this in the Q&A. So that's a nice comment to get.
Oh, thank you. And I also second Christina's comment about not holding our coworkers accountable for unkind behavior as an example of how being nice is valued more than being strong.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's an excellent article that's talks about nice, I think it's called Nice White Meetings. I forget the authors at this moment because I'm very nervous right now. But if you contact me, I'll find the article and I can share it. All right. Thank you.